This is the day the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad therein. This is Randal from the Santa Clara Church greeting you again. And I have a bunch of stories for you today. But hang in there with me. There's a point at the end. Well, do you know what this is? They used to make them out of wood, and they were called yardsticks. And you know, the ones that are a foot long, I wonder if they're called foot sticks. I think they're called rulers. Anyway, the other day, a friend of mine was going to help me do some spraying of weeds. And he says, you know, I don't spray weeds very well because I really don't know the difference between a weed and a plant that you want to keep. I said, well, it's pretty easy. A weed is any vegetation that's growing somewhere that you don't want it. Well, when I was a kid, my grandparents lived right across the street from me. And before my grandmother got into a wheelchair, she wasn't getting around very well, but she had a love of flowers. I wonder if that's where I got my love of flowers. Well, one day she decided that she was going to use me to help her out. And she had a flower bed right outside her back door, and she wanted me to weed it. So I got out there on my hands and knees, and I diligently weeded that. It looked great when I was done. And she came out and was, oh no! You pulled up all the flowers I just planted. Well, I didn't have a clue. Well, I think sometime the same summer, my cousin Kenny and I were in my grandma's backyard. She had orange trees and lemon trees and avocado trees. You know, Southern California, a lot of good stuff. And he and I were out there just goofing off, and we decided that there was a transformer on the power pole in the corner of their property, and we'd take some of those oranges and we'd throw them at the transformer and see if we could hit them. It was kind of a contest. Well, it wasn't too awfully long. My grandma comes storming out of the house, and she said, what are you boys doing? And we just go, nothing. Yeah, well, the neighbor just called, and somebody's been throwing oranges and just hit his back window. And we go, oh. Well, Grandma took a yardstick. She bought those at Dooley's quite often, and she decided to teach us what was good and what was bad. Broke the yardstick over us. I can say that story now because she's long gone and nobody can call children's services on her. But we learned right there a lesson about throwing oranges at a power transformer and hitting a neighbor's window. Well, there's a scripture in Hebrews, and I could just imagine the writer of Hebrews shaking his head while he was writing this down. I'm going to read just a part of it for you. It's Hebrews, the 5th chapter, and I'm going to start, I think, verse 12. How about that? For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you have need again for someone to teach you the elementary principles of the oracles of God. And you have come to need milk and not solid food. For everyone who partakes only of milk is not accustomed to the word of righteousness, for he is an infant. But solid food is for the mature, who, because of practice, have their senses trained to discern good and evil. Key point. Who, because of practice, have their senses trained to discern good and evil. Well, there's a whole lot of good and evil around. And what do you measure that by? Here's the big problem. There's a lot of different worldviews. A lot of people that decide that they're going to do whatever's right in their own eyes. And, you know, that just doesn't work. The United States originally was founded on some biblical principles. Any place that has a good grasp of good and evil uses biblical principles. God said it, I believe it, that settles it. You want to know what's right? You better start looking into seeing what God has to say about it, not what man has to say about it. It's really goofy, all our politics nowadays, and all the things that are transpiring. Who do you know what to believe and what not to believe? It's just a horrid mess. But it's pretty easy to decide what's good and what's evil if you spend a lot of time in the scriptures. So that's what I'm going to encourage you to do. Figure out what's a weed and what's a plant. Plants you keep, the weeds you get rid of. This is Randal Dale. I'm going to sign off with my regular sign off. I know whom I believe and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I committed to him against that day.